It's official there. British rock star Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. These reports just started coming into our newsroom. I want to put up some video here as well for you. But Ozzy's family continues to say that he was with his family and surrounded by love.
On July 22, 2025, the Prince of Darkness finally went quiet. Fans woke up to headlines that felt unreal, yet somehow inevitable. Ozzy Osbourne, John Michael Osbourne from Aston, Birmingham, had passed at 76. But nothing about the last chapter of his life was simple. Hidden diagnoses, AI death hoaxes, a rush to the stage on a velvet bat throne, and whispers of a family pact created a maze of clues that most of us only caught in pieces. This isn't just a goodbye. It's the untangling of how Ozzy chose to exit on his own terms, while the rest of the world tried to write the ending for him. People posted "no way" and "tell me this is fake" before they even finished reading the push alert. That shock wasn't only about losing a legend, it was about realizing how many times we'd already rehearsed this moment with bogus headlines. The blur between rumor and reality had become part of Ozzy's daily life, and still, the man who once staggered through reality TV like a lovable ghoul managed to control his own exit nearly to the end. If you follow the breadcrumbs, little interviews, postponed surgeries, a strategically timed reunion, you start to see intention behind the chaos. Not a mastermind plot, but a survivor's instinct. Squeeze every last drop of noise and joy from a failing body. And that's the story we're about to follow. Not a tabloid scrapbook, but a chain of decisions that turned a sick, stubborn singer into a living cliffhanger until the curtain finally fell. And there was another twist. Even in decline, he kept creating. Between hospital visits, he was scribbling lyrics on notepads, humming melodies into his phone, daring producers to stitch life around a brittle vocal take. Friends say he joked, "If I croak mid-chorus, just loop it and make it a hook." That's classic Ozzy. Grim humor, masking a genuine obsession with leaving fans one more surprise.
That it is with more sadness than mere words can convey that we have to report that our beloved Ozzy Osbourne has passed away this morning.
The trail of these little confessions is scattered across interviews, podcast snippets, and fan Q&As that barely trended at the time. Put them together, and you see a man quietly timing his goodbye, not surrendering to it. He once said Parkinson's wasn't a death sentence. Privately, he'd known about the disease since 2003, long before the public learned the truth on morning television in 2020. For years, he let the tabloids focus on the funny dad from MTV, the wild man who bit a bat, the guy who could barely walk straight but still cracked a joke. Behind the curtain, surgeries stacked up like tour dates he never wanted, spine screws, infections, a brutal fall off an ATV that left him fighting to stand still. Revealing the diagnosis felt like taking off a mask that had started to fuse to his skin. And yet, saying the word aloud didn't slow him. It just forced him to find new ways to move. Slower, sure, but still forward. Because stopping was never in his vocabulary. Even when talking hurt, when balance went missing, when the meds made him foggy, he wouldn't let a condition become his identity. That stubborn streak, it's what set up everything that came next. Back in 2003, long before the words YouTube demonetized meant anything, Ozzy sat in a doctor's office and heard the name of a disease he couldn't even pronounce at first. Rather than blast it out, he chose the oldest rock star move in the book: pretend nothing's wrong and power through. Look at the tour schedules from the mid-2000s. Gaps that fans chalked up to rehab or Ozzy being Ozzy were often just recovery windows. He'd cancel a date, vanish for a few weeks, then reappear on stage with that same wavering vibrato and a grin that said, "Still here."
And surrounded by love, we ask everyone to respect our family privacy at this time.
When he finally said the word Parkinson's on Good Morning America in January 2020, viewers saw a frail man trying to wrestle his own hands still. What they didn't see was the decade plus of adapting his life around tremors. Custom microphone grips, rehearsals cut in half, rooms arranged so he didn't have to turn too fast. He hid it well, but hiding has a cost. Every secret builds pressure. Pressure that eventually explodes in public, which is exactly what happened next. If pain was the villain, trophies became the revenge. In 2020, he dropped Ordinary Man, an album that sounded like a diary, written in eyeliner and scar tissue. 2 years later, Patient Number 9 arrived, and the Grammys bowed, Best Rock Album. While most artists that age are cashing royalty checks, Ozzy was stacking plaques. Then came 2024. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally brought him in solo, not just as the Black Sabbath mouthpiece, but as a force of one. He shuffled, yes, he leaned on canes and railings, but every acceptance speech had the same subtext: I'm still here. Industry insiders whispered about more sessions, more riffs, one more collab list that looked like a festival poster. Ozzy liked it that way. Announce nothing, deliver everything. The man who once lived on the front page now chose surprise drops like a Gen Z rapper. Awards in his left hand, a walking frame in his right. That visual was a statement louder than any pyrotechnic blast. Awards are shiny, but they're also strategic. Ordinary Man sounded like a memoir sung through a megaphone. Elton John, Slash, Duff McKagan, Chad Smith dropping in like celebrities at a hospital bedside. It was catharsis packaged for playlists. Then, Patient Number 9 kicked the door open again. A psychedelic cartoon of mortality featuring Jeff Beck, Tony Iommi, and Eric Clapton trading licks like surgeons arguing over the best incision.
So, of course, we know that Ozzy is most famous for heading up the group Black Sabbath.
Critics called it his best in decades. Ozzy called it therapy. The Grammys agreed, and that golden gramophone gave him a headline that wasn't about disease. Meanwhile, whispers of another tour floated around interviews. If my body lets me, I'll do it. He knew it probably wouldn't, so he leaned into moments he could control. Award shows, pre-taped performances, carefully edited appearances. When the Rock Hall crowned him in 2024, he clenched the podium like a lifeline and still cracked jokes about being a doddering old bat. The man couldn't stop performing even when performances turned into structured sit-downs and canned banter. Momentum mattered more than mobility. But the internet doesn't wait for reality. In the months leading up to July 22nd, fake breaking news clips started popping up. AI-generated anchors declaring Ozzy gone, recycled footage cut with robotic obituaries. Kelly Osbourne blasted one of them online, called it cruel, disgusting. Around the same time, an old Sharon quote resurfaced about a so-called promise to avoid drawn-out suffering. Overnight, headlines twisted it into a suicide pact, because clicks love a morbid fairy tale. The truth? They were a couple who had lived through everything from rehab to reality TV. Of course they talked about dignity, but dignity is a whisper, and hoaxes are a shout. Ozzy himself had joked years earlier, "I'm not dead," every time a rumor trended. This round, though, felt different. Deep fakes blurred his voice, AI tried to clone his snarl, and fans couldn't tell what to believe. When the fakes hit harder than the facts, there was only one card left to play: show up in the flesh. The deepest cut of all wasn't a riff or a rehab stint. It was seeing his death go viral before it happened. Imagine waking up to your own obituary trending, complete with AI-voiced statements from your family. Kelly fought back hard, posting screenshots, swearing at the trolls, but the damage was done.
Back in 1968, the band received numerous accolades over the years, including 2 Grammy Awards.
Once the idea's in the feed, people half believe it forever. Meanwhile, podcasts latched onto an old Sharon soundbite about not wanting to linger as a vegetable, spinning it into cinematic lore, a Romeo and Juliet-style pact between rock royalty. Sensational? Absolutely. Accurate? Not really. It was 2 aging spouses talking about dignity, not dramatics. But rumor ecosystems don't care about nuance. They care about shareability, about dangling a darker version of the truth, just long enough to get you to click. Ozzy laughed at some of it. He even joked, "I'm not dead yet," in one interview. Still, the constant fake-outs created a surreal prelude. By the time the real news hit, a chunk of the internet shrugged because they'd already seen it before. That's the cruelest magic trick the algorithm ever pulled. July 5th, 2025, Villa Park, Birmingham. The billing read, "Back to the beginning," but nobody expected the literalness of it. Ozzy rolled out seated on a custom Gothic throne. Leather, spikes, a bat silhouette arched like a crown, flanked by the original Sabbath crew. He couldn't pace, couldn't leap, couldn't sprint to the stage edge doing the old clap overhead routine. If you freeze frame that Villa Park performance, you can see it. Relief. There's a moment during War Pigs where he lets the band carry a line, closes his eyes, and exhales like a man who just crossed a finish line head first. The throne itself was more than a seat. It was armor, a visual explanation to every fan in the stadium. I can't move, but I can still be me. Engineers designed the armrest to be just high enough that he could push himself upright for climactic phrases, then sink back down before his legs gave.
Induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Among some of their most famous songs,
the set list played like a mixtape of survival. No deep cuts, all killers. Paranoid, Iron Man, Mr. Crowley, Crazy Train. For each song, the crowd sang louder than he did, filling any cracks in his voice with pure nostalgia. People who weren't even alive when Blizzard of Oz dropped were crying next to boomers who saw Sabbath in '72. He didn't thank the crowd with a farewell speech. He just smiled, pointed like a general saluting his army, and mouthed, "Thank you," while the lights dimmed. 17 days later, that clip became a time capsule. You can trace his last 2 years like a medical chart. 4 spinal surgeries by mid-2023, each one stealing a little more motion. Physiotherapy regimes, Tai Chi in his garden to fight the wobble. Infections that spiraled into hospital stays. He said the final surgery would be the last. No more knives, no more metal. He and Sharon retreated to the English countryside, swapping LA chaos for Buckinghamshire birdsong. Friends say he battled dark moods as hard as he battled nerve pain. But every time a rumor claimed he was bedbound, another photo emerged of him in a studio chair, headphones on, grinning through the fatigue. He hated the idea of fans pitying him. He'd take respect over sympathy any day, so they kept it quiet. The worst nights, the bad scans, the hard choices, privacy was the last rebellion of a man whose life had been reality roll for an entire decade. Doctors kept warning him, another surgery could take your voice, your balance, your mind. He rolled the dice anyway, because the alternative, sitting in a chair watching reruns of his own chaos, felt worse. After the last operation, he talked about a nerve being cut too short, leaving him with permanent numbness.
That the original band members would be touring again this year, and it's unclear at this time how they're going to be navigating this shocking news of the death.
Physical therapists crafted routines around micro movements. Stand for 10 seconds, rest for 30, step forward, stop, breathe. It was tedious, humiliating work for a guy who used to sprint from pyrotechnic blast to pyrotechnic blast. Sharon became more than a manager again. She was a gatekeeper, vetting every interview request, every appearance, every rumor. They moved the family base back to the UK not just for tax reasons, though let's be honest, that helped, but because home felt safer. Cashiers in the village didn't shove phones in his face. Neighbors brought casseroles instead of cameras. Even so, he couldn't escape the battle in his head. Depression crept in, that old familiar fog. He coped the only ways he knew: music playing loud, family nearby, dark jokes about wheelchairs and bat bites. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. The morning of July 22nd broke with a family statement. Short, raw, and final. Ozzy had passed, surrounded by love. Tributes detonated across timelines. Jack White posted riffs. Metallica wrote, "Long live the Oz." Old tour rivals, pop stars, even politicians chimed in. Newsrooms scrambled for health explainers. Pundits debated whether heavy metal just lost its last true outlaw. Fans posted shaky phone footage from Villa Park, audio clipping, as they screamed along to Paranoid, turning nostalgia into evidence. Look, he still had it. For a man who once shocked crowds with a bat, his actual exit felt painfully human. No gimmicks, just family and fading breath. The myth had teeth, but the ending had a heartbeat. And that contrast is part of why everyone felt punched in the chest when the push notifications hit. There's an eerie calm to the way true breaking news spreads now.
Sharon Osbourne is feeling the support after Ozzy Osbourne's death. The Osbournes alum shared her appreciation after Gavin Rossdale posted a tribute to the late Black Sabbath rocker in the wake of his passing July 22nd.
One credible tweet, a push alert, then the cascade. The family statement was stripped of decoration. No cause of death, no medical jargon, just love. Within an hour, tributes were piling up. Jack White posted an instrumental clip. Elton John shared a backstage photo from their Ordinary Man session. Metallica wrote a paragraph that sounded like a lyric sheet. Black Sabbath's official channels changed their headers to Black on Black, Ozzy Forever. Fans organized digital vigils, live streams of cover bands, candle emojis, stitched TikToks of Ozzy saying, "I love you all." Did the lighting guy flash a secret code? Of course not. But grief makes pattern hunters out of everyone. What happens next? The vault question looms. There were whispers of one more album, unfinished ideas with superstar guests lined up. In the age of AI, the Osbourne estate now has to guard not just his catalog, but his literal voice from being cloned into nonsense. Maybe we'll get a carefully curated posthumous release. Maybe Sharon locks the hard drives in a safe and throws the key in the Thames. Either way, the story isn't ending, it's morphing. Because Ozzy's real legacy isn't the bat, the drugs, or the bleeps on MTV. It's the refusal to be defined by the worst day in any chapter. He spent 50 years proving that the darkness was a costume and the grit was real. So here's the question for you. Which moment made Ozzy Ozzy for you? The chaos, the comeback, or the courage to sit on that throne and sing anyway? Drop it in the comments, argue it out, and keep his voice loud. The prince may be gone, but the echo is ours to control. Legacy control is the next war.
He was that rare star who was known as both the Prince of Darkness. Mama, I'm coming home.
We've already seen deepfake Elvis voices on TikTok and AI new songs by long-dead rappers. Ozzy's voice, raspy, elastic, instantly recognizable, is prime target practice for clout chasers with laptops. Expect lawsuits, expect watermark tech, expect Sharon on every morning show reminding people, if it didn't come from us, it isn't him. That's the fate of legends in 2025. Immortality with a price tag. So here's the real takeaway. Ozzy's brand was darkness, but his superpower was survival. He kept getting up even when getting up meant being lifted onto a throne. If you've ever felt written off, canceled, or past your prime, remember the old man who wouldn't shut up until his body literally did. Drop your favorite Ozzy moment in the comments. Debate the best riff. Argue about the craziest story you heard. Just keep the noise going, because silence was never his style. So here's the question I'll leave you with. When the legend is louder than the man, who gets to decide which version survives? Drop your answer below. Was it the Sabbath years that forged him? The solo renaissance that saved him? Or the bizarre reality TV era that made him immortal to a new generation? Maybe it's all of it. Maybe the real plot twist is that the Prince of Darkness spent 50 years teaching us how to laugh at the dark, and somehow that laugh still echoes. Long live the Oz, because silence can't kill a voice that taught millions how to be loud. That's the fate of legends in 2025. Immortality with a price tag. So here's the real takeaway. Ozzy's brand was darkness, but his superpower was survival. He kept getting up even when getting up meant being lifted onto a throne. If you've ever felt written off, canceled, or past your prime, remember the old man who wouldn't shut up until his body literally did. Drop your favorite Ozzy moment in the comments. Debate the best riff. Argue about the craziest story you heard. Just keep the noise going, because silence was never his style. So here's the question I'll leave you with. When the legend is louder than the man, who gets to decide which version survives? Drop your answer below. Was it the Sabbath years that forged him? The solo renaissance that saved him? Or the bizarre reality TV era that made him immortal to a new generation? Maybe it's all of it. Maybe the real plot twist is that the Prince of Darkness spent 50 years teaching us how to laugh at the dark, and somehow that laugh still echoes. Long live the Oz, because silence can't kill a voice that taught millions how to be loud.